Hello, good people, and welcome to the Lola Gets channel. And this week, I'm going to talk about my pre-discussions and thoughts I had before starting the GLP-1, okay? But before we dive in, I want to first thank you all who have joined me for another video and who have subscribed to this channel. If you're new here, welcome to your hearts. And if you enjoy what you see, please remember to follow, like, and subscribe. This channel was created for us to be able to share encouraging stories and experience about life. So I'm glad you stopped by to tune in today. All right. And as always, I'm forever humbled and grateful. Okay. All right. So really today I'm going to talk about, like I mentioned, just the pre-discussions and thoughts that I had before starting a GLP-1. And just before I get into all of that, just to get to know each other a little bit, just kind of why, how all of those discussions and thoughts and things transpired into me actually starting to take a GLP-1. So my experience basically with my weight, I've always been a heavyset kid. I was never like the skinny girl in the room, right? So I think in high school when I started marching band was when I actually started like losing weight. And get a little shape on me, and but I still was not skinny. I wasn't, a small framed individual. So, but I think the lowest weight that I got to was when I got to college. And I know most people talk about like, you gain like the freshman 15 when you get to college, but I actually like lost a lot of weight in college. And I think just because I had been heavy basically all my life, and then just got to college and was like, I just started working out. I wasn't really eating healthy. Metabolism is different when you're younger, but I definitely worked out almost every other day, and then just was losing weight. So the lowest that I got as far as weight was 170 pounds, and I'm about 5'4". I'm a little bit under that actually, but we'll say about 5'4". But for me, that was a nice size and shape for me. So basically, how I struggled when I started to struggle with my weight was after my first child and my lovely daughter. So I obviously with pregnancy, you gain weight, and I was gaining some and then losing some. I gained some weight, obviously lost some after I had her, but I still picked up a little bit of pounds even, after that. So then I had my second child, and it was like the same, my oldest son, so it's the same thing happened there. I was gained a little bit while I was pregnant, had him, and then lost some and all of that. So after my second son, I probably got to be over 200 pounds, I think, by that time. So I tried a lot of different things. I tried Weight Watchers, Adipex, or Fenterman, and I'll put in the description of what that is in here. We won't spend a lot of time talking about all that, but do your research. So I'll drop some of that in the description so you know what it is. But basically, it suppresses your appetite, and so that was helping, but it's still not to me, it wasn't really healthy, because sometimes with that you can get heart palpitations. So just again, do your research. But it did help me lose weight, and I was losing it fairly quickly when I was on that. And then by the time, so let me just back up. So several years had gone by after I had my second child. And again, this is when I was picking up a lot of weight and trying to figure out what to do. And that's what I said. I tried Weight Watchers, and Weight Watchers really didn't work for me. And then I found out about Fenterman or Adipex, and started taking that. So I had got down to about 190 pounds, and then found out I was pregnant with my third child. So, so then I had, again, to deal with being pregnant, gaining weight, and, some of all that. So I will say, by the time I had my third child, it was a painful pregnancy because I had to have a C-section. So, and it was definitely after that, it was harder for me to lose some weight, because with the C-section, they had to cut me open, sew me back up. And then I ended up getting a little bit of a fupa, actually more of a fupa than I had ever had before. So that was a little bit like, what am I going to do with this? So I would just say basically after my third child is when my weight just kind of went up and up and up, right? So, and then, being married at the time too, just, being comfortable being married, I think sometimes you pick up a little bit of weight just with all of that too. So by the time I had my third child. So basically going further up after, a third child, and really before the pandemic, so around August, September of 2019, I realized that I had gotten to be like about 270 pounds or maybe a little bit over that. And then my sister was telling me about keto. So then I did all my research, was looking up what keto was. We did it kind of together, right? So then I started doing keto and lost a lot of weight really fast. And I think before the pandemic, I had got down to about 240 pounds. So I lost about 30 pounds in 6 months doing keto. And then the pandemic came, right? So then the pandemic came, we're all locked in, working from home, not really safe to go outside. And then guess what happened, right? I started gaining weight and then again, we're back like this yo-yoing situation. So, but also during that time, during the pandemic, a lot of great things were happening for me. So I started a new career, got a new job, started building our house. But it was also very, very stressful, a lot of stress. And that also, I think, played into the weight gain because it was just a lot of stress happening at that time. And then, like trying to build the house, my weight just was skyrocketing. It was getting crazy. So I tried to do keto again. And that just, the second time around trying to do keto, it just did not work for me. Like, I don't know, I'm a person too, like I love fruits and vegetables. I love eating a lot of different things. And then keto was just too restrictive for me. Like, again, this is just my journey and my experience. And I just couldn't sustain with that. Like I like to eat lots of different types of vegetables, lots of different types of fruit. And it was just, I couldn't sustain with that. So, I even tried the DASH diet. So it's basically, it focuses on reducing sodium intake and all of that. And that is helpful. Like the DASH diet is helpful, but it's still, it didn't really work for me, like trying to do that. And then I just kept trying to figure out, what do I have to do? Like I'm trying to work out, trying to eat better, trying to do all these different things. And it just didn't work out for me. So, and I just felt like, what else can I do to, sustain? Because the Fenterman isn't sustainable and keto was not sustainable for me. Like Weight Watchers just really didn't work out with the point counting and all that. It just didn't work out for me. So I think how I first heard about a GLP-1 was through my sister. And she was telling me about Ozempic and Wegovy, and like how all these people are taking it and all of that. And at first when she told me, I really dismissed it, right? I was just like, I'm not doing it. I'm not taking it. I don't know what it is, blah, blah, blah. I ignored it and just was like, I guess I'm just going to be a heavyset person for the rest of my life. Like it was really defeat. I really felt defeated. And I know some of us, I'm laughing at it now because my own personal experience with weight loss has been up and down throughout my whole life. And it just really was like, I don't know what to do. Like, I was like, Lord, I don't know what to do. I don't know. Things just aren't working for me. Like after, like post kids, things just aren't working for me. And that's just my story. And, that's just it. Right. So like I said, I wasn't really interested in what she was saying about Wegovy, Ozempic, blah, blah, blah. And dismissed it so much I didn't even look up anything about it. Like I was just like, I'm not doing any of that. I just was made up in my mind like, okay. So then I think by October, November of 23, I realized that I was over 270 pounds. So I was over the weight that I had started. So 270 was my highest weight ever in life. And then when I started keto, I was like, okay, I'm never going to be 270 again. It's just an uncomfortable weight. I'm only 5'4", about 5'4". I just was like, no thanks, right? But then I realized by the time, like I had given up at this point too, after my sister had told me about Ozempic and Wegovy and all that. But by October, November of 23, I was over 270. So I was at a weight that I said I wouldn't get back to. And that just was it for me. I was like, okay, you know what? Let me just talk to my doctor about it and figure out what this stuff is. And then that'll help me to start doing my own research, right? I wanted to talk to my doctor first and see what she had to say about it, what it is, what it does, all that stuff. So I went and made a doctor's appointment and to find out more about these drugs and, just because I had gotten to that higher weight. So my first appointment to discuss the GLP-1 drugs was in December of 23. And my weight at my doctor's office at that time was 292. So I was almost 300 pounds. And again, so now I couldn't say 270 was my highest weight ever. It was actually 292 was my highest weight. And that was obviously with clothes on and all that kind of stuff. But I just wanted to cry, right? Like 292 pounds and I'm only about 5'4" was just heartbreaking. So that was so now my story is that was my highest weight ever in life was 292. So I told the doctor all the same stuff that I'm telling you all. And at that time, she had told me, well, I was telling her about what my sister said about Ozempic, Wegovy, and all that, but she had recommended Zepbound because it had just got FDA approved for obesity management, weight loss management, all that stuff. So I will drop the link to about all of that in the description. But so then she was just like, let's try and get a prior authorization for Zepbound. And so then, of course, I was asking all these questions. What is Zepbound? What it does? How does it work? So I'm going to read a little bit of a description here of what I looked at when I initially did my research. And basically, what the active ingredient in Zepbound is tirzepatide. It is manufactured by Eli Lilly, or Lilly's, like we like to say here in the Midwest for all my Midwest folks. So manufactured by Lilly's, and then and then it's tirzepatide is the active ingredient that's in it. So I'll just read what this says. So these medications work by mimicking the action of the GLP-1 hormone. So it's hormone, which helps regulate blood sugar levels, increase insulin secretion, suppresses glucagon release, slows gastric emptying, and reduces appetite. Okay. So again, this was like my initial research and when I was looking it up, but definitely before you start, again, I'm not a healthcare professional or a provider, so these are just, my experiences and what happened along the way in my journey of weight loss. But definitely before you start any new medication, make sure you talk to your healthcare provider. And that's exactly what I did. And do your own homework, do your own research, and make sure it's a good fit for you and what's going on in your life. But there's a lot of data, and we're not going to talk about all of that. Do your research, do your homework. But there's a lot of data about clinical trials, the benefits of the drug, side effects, all of those things that you really need to look up for yourself and then discuss it with a healthcare professional. So I will leave that there. So I would say after I left the appointment, it took about 2 weeks for me to find out that my Zepbound prior authorization was actually denied first. And then it was weird. It was like 2 days later, it got approved. So I don't know what happened between there, like from why it got denied to then it being approved. I was just focused on the fact that it was approved. And then I will just say too, at the time, my initial provider that I was with was leaving the practice. So then I had to find a new provider within that same doctor's office. So she submitted all this stuff. And then by the time it actually got to the approval part, I was with a new provider at that point because she had let us know that she was leaving. And then I actually was just kind of like, didn't know what to do. I was just like, oh, okay, well, we'll just wait and see what happens with that. But she did make sure that she was going to submit everything for the prior authorization and then let me know, or my new doctor would let me know if it got approved or what we would need to do. So basically our step was going to be, if the Zepbound didn't get approved, then we would try for Wegovy. If the Wegovy didn't get approved, then we might have tried for Phentermine since I had tried it before. And then go from there. But that was like last resort, right? Like, because the Phentermine I wasn't too keen about because I had been on it before and it wasn't sustainable for me. But that was just kind of the process that we were making. I think here also at the time when it got denied at first, I don't know that I had enough time to process it being denied because it was so quick when the approval came. So it was like, it was denied. Maybe she had to just submit some additional information and then it got approved. So that's how I took it. And then I didn't care about the denial. I was just focused on the approval part and then had to try to figure out doses. And she started me off obviously on the low dose. So we'll talk about more of that on the next video. But so I had to figure out doses, how to get my medication, all of this stuff just was happening very quickly. So I think that's probably a good place to start, because I am going to talk about my first 6 months on Zepbound and what that was like. But before, in the next video. But before we do that, I am going to share my pre-Zepbound photos from December of 23. So somewhere on the screen, there it is, you'll see what I looked like in December of 23. And then in the next video, we'll kind of share the progression of my first 6 months. Okay. All right. So that is all for me today, everyone. I appreciate you taking the time to sit and talk with me today about the beginning stages of my GLP-1 journey and being on Zepbound. So like I said, the next video will talk about my first 6 months and what that was like. So as forever, I'm humbled and grateful, and I thank you all for being here with me today. All right. Have a good one. Thank you all.